Hello everybody. In this video, I thought I'd do a movie review on the Hangovers. I just watched them this past weekend, and well, I gotta say, I had watched the first one and parts of the second one. I hadn't really watched the third one, so I was interested in watching all of them from the first, the second to the third to kind of get an idea on basically like the order and what really happened. I've done this with a couple of like sagas or series like the American Pie series, and I gotta say, like for instance, the American Pie series delivers. Um, Not so much the Hangover series. The Hangover series was or has a disappointing finish, and I think that's part of the reason why the third one is not so famous or was right. Like I didn't even know there was a third one. But basically, in the third one, there's no hangover. Like they don't drink or they don't get drugged up by Alan. So like nothing, like a lot of things happen. But I think critics say it's not as funny. It's more of like a thriller, and they're dealing with like crime, and they're dealing with something pre Hangover 1. Now, if you guys know about movies, especially like terror movies, like the Scream series, makes you aware of this. How like the first movie in a series is generally like the one that begins everything. The second one, there always has to be like a bigger, I guess like a bigger budget, bigger problems. Like for example, with terror movies or thrillers, like more blood, more guts, more death. And it kind of has like another twist to it, right? Like it follows kind of like the same pattern, like as in the Scream movies. At the end, there's a killer, and you know who it is, or there are two of them, or it's a couple, or it's and for different reasons. And the third one is supposed to be, and this actually happened when I watched Scream 3. The third movie in a trilogy always goes back to before the first one, right? And they do this in The Hangover. So I gotta applaud them for this, good work in going back to something that happened like basically before the first one ever gets on their way, which basically has to do with like how Alan gets the roofies that he basically puts in his friends' drinks so everybody can have fun that night and everything. But the third movie, I felt like it didn't really deliver on this idea of waking up hungover and having to figure out, what happened, and having to find a lost friend. Like in the first one, they lose Doug, and in the second one, they lose the brother of one of the girls that one of the guys is marrying. I think his name is Teddy, and that's kind of like ingenious, right? But the narrative of The Hangover is a good one, right? Because it's like you partied so hard you don't remember what you did, and now you have to figure out what you did, and you go back to all the places you were at the night before, right? But now like asking people, and like asking people what happened. And there's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of that in The Hangover 1 and 2, like where they mention we don't know what happened, we don't remember, can you explain to us what happened? So the first one takes place in Las Vegas. The second one takes place in Bangkok, Thailand. I didn't really like the setting. I'm not really sure why. I think I was more used to like the lights and the shiny things in the first one with Las Vegas. And then the third one, they're kind of like all over the place, but they end up going back to Vegas. But it's more of a, side quest mission type of movie that they're involved in. Um, the third one deals with Alan, and if you guys have watched the movies, you know that Alan is the oddball. He's the one that actually comes up with the wolf pack name for all four of them, and he's kind of like a big kid, right? He's an adult already, but in the third one, his dad ends up dying, and he needs to basically like start growing up, right? So it's basically like his hero's journey arc, right? Whereas in the first one and the second one, there's no clear arc on who's supposed to be developing, but you could say that to a certain extent in the first one and the second one, as well as the third one, no, the third one, no. In the first one and the second one, there's a wedding. So they are four friends, as you know. And in the first one, it's a different friend that gets married as in the second one, right? They are different friends. And you could say it's kind of like their hero's journey. Um, but I found it kind of interesting to see Alan at the end of the third one. He kind of ends up meeting a girl at a pawn shop, and I guess they end up being together. And at the end of the third one, I think in like a post-credit scene, they end up waking up like hungover from partying, I guess, from the wedding that they had. Oh yeah, I think there is a wedding in the third one. It's like I just watched it, right? There's a better review, and that's fine. But in the third one, Alan ends up waking up, and yeah, like there's a motorcycle like through a wall, and it's like the hotel room is all like crazy, and Stu I think has boobs too. It's kind of funny. But yeah, it's like ridiculous, but that's the end of it. There's no plan for a Hangover 4 or anything like that. I don't know if in the future they will do like a reunion movie or something like that. I saw an interview where they were asking them if there would be like another movie in a couple of decades or something like that, or where they would see the people, the characters in a couple of years. And they were just kind of like, yeah, I hope, like, taking it easy and relaxed. And the movie, I think, ultimately speaks on what I talk a lot about here, excuse me, which is like that balance between chaos and order. Because I found it very interesting how these guys, the four friends, they kind of never, you kind of never really see them drink. And it's not so much a drinking movie as it is like a post drinking movie, like a hangover movie. What happens during the hangover? And I found that to be like interesting because they in the second one especially, I think it's kind of like Stu's journey, and he ends up coming to the conclusion on two different occasions, well, on two occasions towards the end of the movie, he calls himself, or he refers to himself as a demon. He says he has a demon inside of him because he ends up getting like a tattoo, and he ends up hooking up with like a prostitute, as he did in the first one, which that's something that he doesn't reveal to his wife in the third movie. He doesn't reveal it to his wife in the second movie, and they kind of make reference to it in the third one, and then he ends up not telling his wife either in the third movie. So I guess they just kind of like let that fly. I'm not really sure what they did with that secret. But yeah, he comes to the realization, and I guess he needed that strength because the girl that Stu is going to marry in the second movie, her father, that is Stu's father-in-law, is basically hates Stu, right? And he hates him because he considers him a weak man, right? He tells him that he's like rice, he's like white rice that you give or that you feed to babies and old people, right? Just blonde, like no taste. And that's why at the end of the movie he confronts her father and he says like, I actually have spice in me, right? I'm not so blonde. And if you know, Stu is kind of like he has glasses, he kind of looks like stupid, and but he's smart because he's the one that actually ends up solving the dilemma of where the guys are in the first and second movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the first movie he does too. I know he does it in the second movie. He's looking at the lights, the lights go out. He's looking at how the ice melts into water in the ice cube, and then he just has the idea of, oh, he's in the elevator, right? Spoiler alert. But he comes to the realization of that. Um, Bradley Cooper's character, I think he's more of like in charge, right, of the group. He's the one, he's like the cool guy. And Alan kind of copies him because if you notice, he starts wearing like the glasses that he wears, especially like towards the end of the third movie. They start to insinuate that like he may actually have like feelings for him, like or I don't know if it's like a laughing gag moment, but I think they insinuate that he likes him, like likes him for real, right? Because Alan again is like this big kid. He's kind of isolated. He's lonely, but um, you know, uh, it's basically Doug. I think he's Doug's brother-in-law, so he needs to bring him along, right? And in general, the movies are funny. There's a lot of comedy. I think one of the parts I really liked was in the beginning of the first one when Stu wakes up after the party, like when the hangover begins. He wakes up and the hotel room is a mess, and he wakes up and he's like all dizzy, because he's probably like still drunk or drugged up or whatever, and he goes to the couch and he lays down like this, right? And he just he throws his head back and he just closes his eyes, right? And it's like if you ever like had a party, what that feeling is like the next morning where you just like get up, you're like, all right, and then you just go somewhere and then you just close your eyes and then you just like sit there for a moment. Because so I think they really capture the essence of what a hangover is, especially in the first one. The second one does kind of get like ridiculous, especially with the whole incident where I think they burn down a neighborhood and Stu gets a tattoo and all these type of like ridiculous things happen. But in the third one, I think they tried to get a little bit more like emotional, especially for the fans. Like, we're closing this trilogy up, and they kind of tried to take like a maybe like some type of emotional route. I mean, it's still funny. I think one of my favorite parts in the third one was when they break into the guy's house and they get the collar off the dogs, and then they have to wear them and crawl around the house because they can't, because of the alarm system in the house. So I thought that was pretty hilarious. But I did feel like it lacked comedy. It's not like, for example, the first one and the second one, which had me laughing like in every scene at least once. Um, so yeah, I thought that was a good review. I mean, they're easy watch movies because usually on the weekend I'll watch like some movies, and it will be kind of difficult to get through one. Like I'll start it in the morning and maybe finish it off in the afternoon. But these movies, I just watch one after the other. So they're an easy watch. And I mean, it felt kind of good to revisit them after they've been out for so long. I was like, yeah, I want to like, see those guys go through that and, be all confused. And, they kind of, they descend into chaos ultimately. And, it's funny because in both the first one and the second one, it's not actually that they get super drunk. It's that Alan ends up drugging them up for different reasons. And I did think I was gonna see like a recurring. I wouldn't call them Easter eggs, but recurring tropes, narrative tropes in each of the movies. Like, for example, in the first one, they end up with a tiger, right, in the room, and they have to bring back the tiger. And then the tiger, they end up sleeping the tiger, and the tiger wakes up in traffic, and it ends up attacking. I forget his name, but Bradley Cooper's character. And in the second one, they end up with a monkey and the whole ordeal with the monkey that sells pharmaceuticals and things like that. So I thought that was funny, and they get stuck with someone with a fourth person. Like in the first one, they get stuck with a baby, which this baby actually comes back out in the third one, and I thought that was kind of like interesting, right? How Alan like the third one is all about like Alan coming to the realization that he needs to grow up. But that baby appears in the first movie, and they need to carry that baby around for a little bit in the first one. And in the second one, they end up with an old man, right? So I thought in the third one, there was going to be like a different animal that was going to be with them. And they were also going to end up with like a sort of, but you could ask like what would be, after like a baby and an old man, what else could they have ended up with? So yeah, I think that the third one kind of lacked that narrative. I think they tried to go more into the emotional aspect of things. By far, I would have to say I would rank them in that order, like the first one, the second one, and the third one in that order, from preference, or at least in my personal preference perspective. But yeah, that's all I got for this review. Let me know what you think. If you've watched them, or if you plan on watching them, you can come back and revisit this video and let me know what you think. All right, so that's all I got for this one, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.